Hi, this is Jeff with the Halcyon Masters and Impact Gaming. Welcome to the Heroic Ties series, where we take a closer look at the story and lore behind the Vainglory heroes. Today's video is a spin-off from the core Vainglory story to look at a what-if scenario, and we're pleased to bring you part 1 of the Rise of the Star Queen skin lore series. Captain, there's a fight about! A sprite named Lou mistook Vox for the captain of the Audacity. Vox was just a passenger on the great airship along with his father Ardan and sister Celeste. Tired and almost impossible to wake, the sprite did everything she could to try to wake him. In a last-ditch effort, the sprite sneezed sprite dust on him and then floated him to the bridge. In a tipsy-turvy way, Vox took his new duties with grace and soundly defeated the other sky captains in battle. 2 fleets of enemy ships became his, and their crews pledged fealty to their new captain. In classic Vox style, he installed speakers and amplifiers to create weapons of sound, which he used to defeat his adversaries and throw some awesome parties.
I'm feeling so crazy right now.
Vox was living the life of a pirate, and it wasn't until Lou demanded a bedtime story. The only story that came to his mind was that of his sister and her adventures. Vox missed his family, so he decided to steer his fleet over to the Halcyon Fold.
His sister should be around here somewhere.
On a gangplank, yeah, Vox took the whole space pirate thing a little too seriously. He yelled down to Celeste, "I've brought you a navy," and with that, the rebellion against the Storm Queen began. Around the time that Vox left to be the captain of the Audacity, Ardan stormed his way into the Queen's castle. Okay, I know that was a bad pun. He kicked down the door to find the Storm Queen waiting patiently for him. She says calmly, "I'm glad you've come," and reveals a glass chamber which held the body of his late wife, Julia. Ardan drops his offensive stance and the Storm Queen continues, "I did not give the order. Catherine acted on her own. Join me and punish the deserter who murdered my sister." Ardan then became one of the Queen's Storm Lords. At the end of a ceremony to swear in the new knights of the Queen's army, a hooded figure entered the courtroom. The person proceeded to the front of the room and dropped to the floor while reciting the oath to protect and serve. At the end of the oath, the person revealed herself to be Catherine and begged mercy of the Queen. The Queen leans down to Catherine and lifts her head up by the chin. "You broke the law." Catherine agreed and told the Queen that she is the law. "So am I," said the Queen, and she backhanded Catherine across the right cheek. She then kissed her left cheek and said, "Mercy is granted. Rise, Lady Catherine, and receive the shield and arbor of your knighthood." The Storm Queen's hand closed on her shoulder and she whispered, "I forgive you, but you will never again leave my side." While Ardan received the title of Storm Lord, he was known to the court as the Key. He was different from the other nobles. Instead of fancy robes and jewels, he wore his power armor and stood vigilant outside the Queen's chambers. The Queen placed a key around his neck, and she granted him some magic so that he could always be awake. But the magic aged him from the inside out, and some say even twisted his mind. One day, Catherine mocked Ardan in front of the rest of the court, saying he was once handsome and capable of love. That pushed Ardan over the edge, and he knocked Catherine to the ground. He tried to speak, but nothing came out as the magic had decayed his lungs past repair. That night, he was fitted with a helmet so that he could breathe and a battery that kept his heart beating. Ardan stood vigilant outside the Storm Queen's chambers only because of the few short minutes a day that the Queen allowed him to spend with Julia. Now that is dedication. In a city known as Lyon, an uprising erupted. The Queen, along with Catherine and her army, went to calm the situation. Unorganized citizens were all that remained, and Catherine called out to the mob, "Lay down your arms and be at peace. Long live the Storm Queen." A tomato slammed against her shield and the crowd grew more restless. Catherine channeled the power of thunder and slammed her shield against the ground. A tremor pulsed through the streets and the crowd went silent. Catherine called out again, "Long live the Storm Queen." Later that night, as the Queen slept, Catherine decoded a message from Githia. The successor gathers allies, rebellion comes to Mount Lily. While destroying the message, Catherine thinks to herself, a revolution can be crushed or supported. It looks like Catherine has another impossible decision to make. Well, that is the conclusion to part 1 of the Rise of the Star Queen alternative fate lore. Thank you again for watching and stay tuned for the next episode. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button. You can also press right here to subscribe and be the first to know when we release a new video. Subscriptions and likes go a long way to helping out this channel, so with an easy push of a button, you can be part of the Heroic Ties series. On behalf of the Halcyon Masters and Impact Gaming, thank you again, and we'll see you on the Halcyon Fold.